Rick Lagina has finally ended the hunt on Oak Island, and the news has shaken fans and treasure hunters worldwide. After decades of searching, digging, and countless unanswered questions, Rick made a move that no one expected. Reports indicate that he completed a private multi-million-dollar deal involving the treasure he spent years chasing. This decision has left many wondering what exactly was discovered and why the treasure did not remain on the island. What made Rick and his team walk away quietly without sharing the full details with the public? The entire situation raises questions not only about the treasure itself, but about the potential dangers tied to it. Sources suggest that what Rick uncovered was not gold, silver, or jewels, but something ancient, highly valuable, and possibly dangerous, drawing attention from powerful groups around the world. The moment of discovery was extraordinary. On the morning of the find, the crew descended on the garden shaft, their equipment ready, fog rolling over the island and anticipation high. For decades, the hunt had been marked by small discoveries, clues, and theories, but nothing prepared anyone for what lay beneath the surface that morning. As the drill sounded differently than usual, the team realized that they had reached something solid. Cameras captured every detail as the machinery continued to expose the metal chest buried deep in the mud. The chest glimmered in a way that immediately suggested it was unlike any ordinary treasure. Strange symbols were engraved on its surface, markings that no one could fully recognize. The excitement turned into a cautious reverence as Rick gathered his team, sensing that this discovery was beyond gold. The object seemed powerful, ancient, and full of secrets. It was a moment that would change the course of the Oak Island saga forever. Once the chest was lifted from the ground, the atmosphere grew heavier with tension. The entire crew watched as thick mud dripped from its sides, revealing a strange golden hue that did not resemble ordinary treasure. Rick Lagina handled the chest carefully, acknowledging the weight of the discovery. This was not just another chapter in the hunt, this was potentially history-changing. Marty Lagina and other team members stood silently, understanding that what they had found might be beyond comprehension. No one dared speculate aloud, but it was clear that this was something extraordinary. The symbols on the chest hinted at ancient origins, possibly tied to civilizations long forgotten. Some suggested that these markings might connect to the Knights Templar or other secret societies that had historically hidden powerful artifacts. Whatever it was no ordinary treasure, and the team instinctively understood that revealing it could have consequences far beyond Oak Island. After the discovery, the story took a dramatic turn. Rumors began to circulate that Rick Lagina had made a private deal under the cover of darkness. The chest, along with its contents, was storage. It was a responsibility. Hiding the truth was no longer possible once questions arose. The map pointed to a canyon described in the journals, marked with a red symbol and the words, "The rest is still there." Parker confirmed the vault did not hold the biggest secret, the land did. When the crew followed the map, they uncovered another buried chest with the same crest. Inside were journals in unknown languages and sealed parchment scrolls. These items were not meant for sale. They were preserved knowledge, protected for generations. Historians confirmed the documents had real historical value. Parker refused to let them be removed or exploited. He understood that by opening the vault, he had invited the world into the story. But he accepted the responsibility, valuing truth and respect over profit. The vault became a symbol of responsibility on the claim. It reminded Parker and his crew that some discoveries are not about gold or money, but history, trust, and respect. Parker reflected that growing up, he believed mining was about risk and reward. His grandfather's secret taught him that gold could also be a burden, attracting danger and conflict. As days passed, Parker slowed operations near sensitive areas. He wanted to protect what had been uncovered. Leadership, he realized, was no longer just about speed or efficiency. It meant knowing when to pause, when to protect, and when to act with care. The vault was treated not as a mystery, but as a teacher, a reminder that history matters more than gold. Even as the world speculated online, Parker chose not to respond. He emphasized that rushing decisions could lead to mistakes. The gold bars stayed sealed. The journals and maps were documented and preserved. The claim continued, but with a slower, more deliberate pace. Mistakes now could last longer than profits. Parker spent time alone, reflecting on the lessons of the vault. He walked the edges of the claim, understanding the land's history and the responsibility it carried. He recognized the wisdom in his grandfather's silence and the courage it took to protect the truth. By spring, Parker had accepted the weight of his role. Mining would continue, but the vault would remain a place of care, not spectacle. The story of the vault was no longer about him. It was about generations, trust, and legacy. Parker confirmed that gold alone could not define success. Protecting the past, showing restraint, and honoring promises mattered more. The vault stands today as proof that the greatest responsibility is not in what you uncover, but in how you protect it. Parker Schnabel finally confirmed the secret inside, and in doing so, became a guardian of history, not just a miner. Gold can build fortunes, but truth defines legacies. After the vault was opened, the claim felt different. The crew moved slower, not because they were tired, but because they were aware of the weight of history surrounding them. Every shovel of dirt, every bucket of gold felt like it carried a story that had been waiting decades to be told. Parker spent more time observing the machinery and the team, ensuring that no one treated the claim as they had in past seasons. Everything had to be precise, careful, and deliberate. Parker also began spending more time documenting what he had found. Every journal, every map, and every object in the vault was photographed, cataloged, and stored safely. Experts worked alongside him, translating the old texts, verifying the gold markings, and piecing together the movements of those who had left the treasures decades ago. Parker watched over every step, understanding that rushing could destroy not just physical evidence, but the truth behind it. The crew noticed Parker's demeanor had changed. He was still the same determined miner, but quieter, more reflective. He asked more questions, listened more, and demanded patience from everyone. They understood that they were not just mining gold anymore. They were guarding a story, protecting a legacy, and learning a lesson in responsibility. Every mistake could now have consequences far beyond lost gold. Word about the vault began to spread slowly. Some journalists and fans guessed what might be inside, and curiosity drew attention from outsiders. Vehicles were spotted near the claim, seemingly observing from a distance. Parker did not panic. He increased security, communicated with local authorities, and made sure the land remained safe. The gold, the documents, and the artifacts were under constant watch. He knew that the world had changed, and that once secrets were revealed, the ripple effects were inevitable. Parker decided that the story of the vault would not be rushed. The gold bars stayed sealed, the journals untouched, and the maps carefully studied. He refused all offers to sell or move the items. His priority was clear: protect the history, preserve the evidence, and make sure the knowledge passed on was accurate. The lessons from the past had taught him that greed and haste could destroy legacies. Exploring the canyon marked on the map became the next priority. Parker, along with his most trusted crew, carefully navigated the rugged terrain described in the journals. Every rock, every river bend, and every tree was checked against the old maps. The team understood that they were not simply searching for gold. They were following a trail left by people who had risked their lives to preserve it. Every step carried caution, respect, and responsibility. When they finally located the buried container in the canyon, the team felt the tension in the air. It was quiet, almost reverent. Parker carefully removed the container from the earth, revealing another chest marked with the same crest as in the vault. Opening it was done with extreme care. Inside were more journals, documents, and sealed scrolls. These items were not treasures to be sold, but messages and records from people who had lived and traveled long before modern mining. Historians confirmed the authenticity of the materials. They noted that many of the symbols, writings, and markings did not match any known culture in the region. The gold bars were from a different era and location, refined long before they arrived in the Yukon. Parker realized that the vault and the canyon together formed a network, a historical trail left by people to survive, to protect knowledge, and to safeguard what could not be risked. Parker also learned about the dangers of keeping these items secret. The journals described individuals being followed, questioned, and threatened. John Schnabel, understanding the potential consequences, chose silence and protection. Parker now had to take on that same responsibility. Every decision carried risk, not just for him, but for his crew and for the legacy of those who had come before. The season on the claim continued, but the focus had shifted. Mining operations were still essential, but Parker balanced them with preservation work. He trained the crew to handle artifacts properly, to respect the documents, and to understand that this was a new kind of challenge, one that combined mining with historical stewardship. Every day on the claim became a mix of labor, research, and respect for the past. Parker reflected on what his grandfather had taught him. John Schnabel had understood that gold was more than wealth. It was influence, power, and sometimes danger. By protecting these artifacts and records, Parker was honoring that wisdom. He realized that success was no longer measured solely in ounces of gold, but in the trust, knowledge, and protection he provided. The vault became the symbol of a new era for the claim. Crew members treated it as sacred ground. Any entry required permission and care. The presence of the vault changed how work was conducted, how machines were operated, and how everyone interacted with the land. Mistakes were no longer just costly, they could threaten history itself. As the weeks passed, Parker also considered the future. He knew that one day the artifacts might need to be studied further, perhaps even displayed for educational purposes, but he wanted to make sure it was done correctly. He set strict rules for handling, copying, and sharing the information. Every decision was deliberate, slow, and well documented. Parker spoke openly to the crew about leadership. True leadership, he explained, was about knowing when to act and when to pause. It was about protecting people and knowledge, not just chasing profit. Mining had taught him risk, resilience, and hard work. The vault taught him restraint, respect, and responsibility. Both lessons were essential to survival on the claim. Even as the world speculated online, Parker remained silent about specifics. He understood that misinformation could cause harm. Some people
been unearthed. Rick Lagina's absence from public view added to the mystery. While government agents and historians moved around the island, Rick stayed away, speaking only in private. His rare appearances were brief and carefully measured. He avoided specifics, giving cryptic statements that left even the most loyal crew members unsure about the next steps. Observers noticed the deep lines on his face, the tiredness in his eyes, and the way he seemed to carry the weight of something much larger than himself. Rumors grew online that Rick was not only protecting the artifact, but also protecting the people around it, including his crew and potentially the wider world. His calm exterior hid intense internal pressure. Every decision he made appeared calculated, as if he was balancing the safety of the team, the secrecy of the artifact, and the demands of those who might seek it. Inside the crew, emotions were a storm. Some members were relieved at the payments they received, grateful that years of effort had been recognized. Others felt a hollow emptiness, a sense of betrayal that decades of dedication had ended not with a revelation, but with secrecy. Conversations became heated. Emma Culligan, who had first identified the metal chest with sonar, quietly insisted that the decision had been correct. She believed that some discoveries were too powerful to expose to the world. Charles Barkhouse, on the other hand, felt anger and loss. He saw the sale as a betrayal of history, a surrender of something that belonged not just to the team, but to the world. These differing perspectives created tension that grew stronger with each day, dividing the crew emotionally even as they maintained the appearance of unity. Outside the island, online communities exploded with activity. Social media platforms, forums, and news comment sections filled with speculation about the chest, the artifact, and Rick Lagina's motives. People debated whether the chest contained ancient knowledge, a Templar relic, or a powerful object with global implications. Theories spread faster than facts. Some suggested that the object could rewrite history or reveal hidden truths about early civilizations. Others speculated that the artifact had technological or military significance, explaining the sudden involvement of government officials and historians. Reddit threads exploded with analysis, photos, and old Oak Island footage as fans tried to reconstruct events and piece together clues. Every detail, every snippet of information became a puzzle piece in a story that no one could fully explain. Even journalists were drawn to Oak Island, eager to uncover details of the private deal. News crews attempted to reach Rick and Marty Lagina, but security was tight. Reporters waiting outside were met with silence, official statements, or vague remarks. Questions about the identity of the buyer and the value of the artifact remained unanswered. The secrecy only fueled speculation. Some outlets claimed the buyer was a billionaire collector, someone with immense resources and access to private security. Others hinted at connections to global organizations or secret societies that valued historical artifacts above gold or money. The mystery surrounding the deal became larger than the treasure itself, turning Oak Island from a historical curiosity into a center of intrigue that attracted worldwide attention. Back on the island, every discovery that had led to the chest now seemed like part of a larger puzzle. Old excavation sites, flooded tunnels, and hidden shafts gained new significance. Clues that once seemed minor now appeared to be pieces of a carefully designed map leading to the chest. Equipment used over the years, sonar machines, drills, and excavation tools were not just instruments but extensions of the hunt, connecting decades of effort to the single monumental find. For the crew, revisiting these sites was bittersweet. They remembered the anticipation, the excitement, and the frustration of years spent searching. Now those memories were tied to a discovery that no one could openly examine. The chest itself remained a topic of constant discussion. Though no one outside the deal knew its exact contents, the descriptions given by insiders painted a picture of a highly unusual and possibly ancient artifact. The metal's color, the engraved symbols, and the weight all suggested that it was unlike anything the world had seen. Researchers pointed to the strange markings as evidence of a connection to medieval Europe, possibly the Knights Templar. Theories emerged that the chest could hold sacred relics, forbidden knowledge, or documents of immense historical importance. Each theory, while speculative, added to the aura of power surrounding the chest. People wondered not just what Rick had found, but why it had been removed with such secrecy and why it was no longer available for study. Rick Lagina's statement that some treasures find their own owners became a mantra repeated across social media and forums. Observers speculated that the buyer might have been a passionate collector or a guardian of the history itself, someone who knew that true value of a treasure lies beyond money or public display,
for wealth alone, but for the ability to protect the artifact. The secrecy suggested that revealing the contents could be dangerous. Some believed the chest might contain knowledge that could disrupt governments, religious institutions, or societal structures. Others feared it might hold something with unknown powers, the kind of discovery that humanity might not be ready to understand. The cryptic nature of Rick's words ensured that questions would continue to circulate for years to come. The Oak Island story had evolved dramatically. What was once a simple treasure hunt had become a complex tale of secrecy, morality, and global intrigue. Every excavation, every discovery, and every decision was now part of a narrative that extended far beyond the island itself.
Crew members had to navigate their own feelings while understanding the broader implications of their work. The responsibility of handling such a significant discovery weighed heavily on them. Even as the public speculated, the reality on Oak Island was far more complicated, filled with ethical dilemmas and unanswered questions. The journey of discovery had changed the people involved, leaving them with memories of adventure, loss, and moral responsibility. Even weeks after the deal, the island remained under high security. Government agents, historians, and private personnel controlled access, ensuring that no one could disturb areas connected to the chest. Cameras that once captured the hunt now recorded a quieter, more guarded environment. The crew had to adapt to this new reality, balancing their curiosity and dedication with the restrictions imposed for safety and secrecy. Every visit to the excavation sites reminded them of the treasure that had been removed and the weight of the decisions that followed. Oak Island, once a symbol of hope and discovery, had become a place of caution and reflection, where even small movements carried meaning. Days on Oak Island passed slowly, each one carrying a sense of unease. The island had changed. The crew, once united by excitement and curiosity, now moved cautiously. Conversations were quiet, almost hesitant. Even small gestures seemed weighed with meaning. Rick Lagina's absence left a gap that was impossible to fill. He had always been the driving force behind the hunt, the anchor that held the team together through failures, floods, and near misses. Now, his silence forced the crew to confront the reality of what had happened. They were no longer simply treasure hunters, they were witnesses to something far bigger, something almost impossible to explain. Marty Lagina, usually calm and collected, struggled to balance his role as leader and mediator. He had supported Rick through decades of excavation and had invested millions in the search, but even he found it difficult to process the secrecy surrounding the chest. While he understood Rick's reasoning, the sudden disappearance of the artifact and the involvement of unknown buyers and government agents made him uneasy. He tried to reassure the crew, reminding them that safety and discretion were the top priorities. But internally, Marty wrestled with the knowledge that decades of work had been hidden from the public. The history they had uncovered, the artifacts, the tunnels, and the countless hours of digging, all of it now seemed like pieces of a story no one outside the inner circle could fully understand. Charles Barkhouse, on the other hand, found it impossible to accept the secrecy. He had poured years into Oak Island, documenting, digging, and analyzing every clue. To him, the treasure was not just for the crew or Rick, it belonged to the world. His frustration often led to tense confrontations with other team members. Emma Culligan, thoughtful and measured, tried to explain why Rick's decision made sense. She argued that some discoveries were too powerful, too dangerous, or too valuable to be shared recklessly. But Charles could not let go of the idea that history had been hidden, and the moral weight of that choice stayed with him, shaping his every action on the island. Theories about the chest grew wilder as news of the deal spread. Online communities speculated endlessly. Some claimed the artifact was a Templar relic, perhaps a piece of the Holy Grail, or a document capable of rewriting European history. Others argued that it might contain technology from an advanced ancient civilization long lost to time. Archaeologists and historians chimed in, analyzing photographs of the chest and the engraved symbols. Every line and curve of the metal surface sparked new discussions. Some patterns resembled medieval European symbols. Others suggested ancient civilizations or religious codes. With no concrete information, every theory carried equal weight, leaving fans, researchers, and journalists to argue endlessly about the true nature of the discovery. While speculation ran wild online, the reality on Oak Island was far more controlled. Areas that had once been open to the crew and camera teams were now heavily guarded. Black SUVs with mysterious symbols appeared regularly. Armed security personnel patrolled the perimeters. Government officials moved with authority, inspecting equipment, scanning the land, and documenting every visible artifact. For the first time in decades, Oak Island was no longer just a private excavation site. It had become a restricted zone, a place where history, secrecy, and power intersected. Crew members had to navigate this new reality, balancing their curiosity and dedication with the rules and limitations imposed by